Okay, so what I'm going to be talking about predominantly today is kind of what we discussed in class today on Friday, which was a lot to do with the Holocaust and evil and how something as wicked and vile as the Holocaust can happen. But first, before we get to that, I wanted to make one point about I think it was Monday's class. We talked about how, like, for the Holocaust, there's so many photos that document the atrocities that occurred during this time, but there's only a select handful that most people have seen and most people could really attach themselves to and say, "Oh, I've seen that before." Um, and my opinion on that was it kind of makes sense because one photo has the ability to symbolize an entire, in this case, decade or so of Jewish annihilation. So it's not like if you have one picture, you have thousands of pictures of something, but one picture is sufficient to represent all of the suffering and all the atrocities that went on, which is pretty cool. Not cool, but it's pretty remarkable that one picture has the power to do that. Um, and then again, talking about mine, kind of what we discussed on Friday, um, and it was about the Holocaust and how something like that could happen. And we spent a lot of time kind of comparing what we thought about ISIS and how, in some ways, they're similar to Hitler or to the Nazis and Hitler in the Holocaust, because as Westerners and Americans, we see these people as just pure evil, and then you made the argument about how it may not be evil. It's kind of like they took those, especially in the Holocaust, they took those Enlightenment Western ideals and kind of misconstrued them into a way in which they could annihilate like 8 million Jewish people. Um, but one thing I didn't really understand the connection between that and ISIS, because yes, they're very frustrated, angry people, and but they still have human feelings and emotions. Like I think I brought up about how, they're disheartened because they can't find a job and they see the West as some source of evil. But then I think what it really stems down to is just radicalism in religion. And I hate to like be that guy who just kind of talks down on religion all the time. But as someone who grew up in a very religious Roman Catholic family, recent years I've definitely started to stray away from it, and it's just frustrating because you see these people who use religion to justify like the most atrocious acts of violence that you could possibly imagine, and obviously that's the case in ISIS. I know it's recently become politicized when people don't like, especially I know the Obama administration, they don't like saying that it's Islamic terrorists. They're just terrorists. That's really it's their thought process isn't based on any sort of religion. But I respectfully disagree with that. Um, but one quote I found that was very interesting was how um, Hitler kind of used that same theory to apply to his justification for killing millions of Jewish people. In his book Mein Kampf, which a lot of people are familiar with, there's a quote that says, "Personification of the devil is the personification of the devil as the symbol of all evil assumes the living shape of the Jew. By defending myself against the Jew, I am fighting the work of the Lord." And it's just frustrating because I know religion's done so much good in the world, but it's also done so much evil and horrible things, and people use it to justify literally just the worst things imaginable. Um, I know that's not really what we were talking about in class, and I probably wouldn't say something as explicitly, kind of against religion in a class at a Catholic school, but those are my opinions. That's kind of what I really thought about after we talked about all that stuff in class. So that was a little bit longer, but I guess I have a lot to say today. So there you go.